His fingers traced the line of my spine, but his eyes were on her. It was just for a second, but I saw it. I saw the way his gaze followed the curve of her wine glass as she raised it to her lips, the way the muscles in his jaw tightened when she laughed. And in that one silent moment, the fortress I had called my life for 10 years suddenly felt like it was made of sand. My name is Olivia. For a decade, my husband Ethan and I have built a life here in Portland, Oregon. He's an architect. He designs beautiful, stable homes that are meant to last forever. I'm a landscape designer. I bring them to life with gardens that change with the seasons, but always return. We were a perfect partnership. Our love was the foundation, solid and deep. Or so I thought. They say love is built on trust, but what happens when the foundation cracks right under your feet? Keep watching, because the person you trust most might be the one holding the hammer. If you believe loyalty is everything, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone you would never, ever lie to. Tonight was supposed to be simple. A storm had knocked out the power in half the city, and my best friend, Chloe, needed a place to stay. When she arrived, our quiet, comfortable home instantly felt charged with a different kind of energy. Chloe has always been a force of nature, all dark, wild hair, a husky laugh, and a restless spirit that I secretly admired. I was so happy to have her. I made dinner, we opened a bottle of rich Cabernet, and I thought, this is perfect. A girls' night with my husband here to join in the fun. You two are an inspiration, Chloe said, looking from me to Ethan. She was sitting directly across from him, her body angled toward him. I just thought she was being friendly, trying to bridge the gap. Ethan can be reserved, and I've always wanted them to be closer. 10 years is a long time, Ethan agreed, his voice a low rumble. Chloe leaned forward, her silk blouse catching the light. She said, for me, it never lasts. I get bored. I crave the fire, the kind of desire that makes you feel dangerously alive. I nodded in sympathy, thinking of her string of failed relationships. I said, you'll find it, Chloe, reaching for her hand. But her eyes weren't on me. They were on my husband. He didn't look away. I saw him hold her gaze, a silent conversation passing between them that I wasn't a part of. I got up to get more cheese from the kitchen. As I turned my back, I heard the scrape of a chair and Chloe's soft laugh. When I came back, the move felt different, quieter. Ethan was staring intently at the patterns on his glass. Chloe was smiling to herself. I put the plate down, chattering about a new client to fill the sudden silence, feeling a strange need to pull the room back to normal. The conversation moved on. We talked about old college memories, funny stories from work. I felt the tension in my shoulders begin to ease. I was imagining things, of course I was. Ethan refilled our glasses. As he passed one to Chloe, their fingers brushed. It was a small thing, a nothing, but he pulled his hand back so fast, it was like he'd been burned. I saw it. Chloe's smile widened just a little. She knew I'd seen it. She took a slow sip of wine this time, her eyes on me, a silent challenge in their depths. I picked at my food, my appetite gone. The wine that had made me feel warm and happy moments before now just made my head feel fuzzy. Ethan was quiet, withdrawn. Chloe, on the other hand, was glowing. She seemed to feed off the strange energy in the room. I watched her, this woman I'd known for 15 years, and felt a disorienting sense of looking at a stranger. She gently fixed a stray strand of hair, her movement slow and deliberate, and I noticed the way Ethan's attention followed her hand. He was watching her every move. The room was getting warm. I wanted to open a window. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just sat there, a smile fixed on my face, listening to the rain beat against the glass. I looked at the man I loved and the woman I called my best friend. My two favorite people, finally connecting. My heart felt so heavy. So I yawned. A big, theatrical, wine-filled yawn that stretched through my whole body. I needed this night to end. The air was too heavy to breathe. "I'm exhausted," I announced, pushing my chair back. "This wine has gone straight to my head." "No, stay," Chloe protested, but there was no real force behind it. Ethan looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Just tired," I lied, forcing another smile. I stood up and decided to do something normal, something to prove to myself that everything was fine. "We should dance first." Before either of them could respond, I went to the speaker and put on an old indie pop song we all used to love. The familiar upbeat melody felt like a lifeline. I grabbed Chloe's hand and pulled her into the middle of the living room. She laughed and let me twirl her around. For a few moments, it felt like old times. Just two best friends being silly. I spun and danced, letting the music wash over me, trying to forget the last hour. I closed my eyes for a second, just moving to the beat, lost in a memory of a simpler time. When I opened them, the song was ending. Chloe was smiling, but it was a different kind of smile now. It was sharp, victorious. And she was looking past me, at Ethan, who was watching us from his chair with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He wasn't watching me. He was only watching her. "Okay, now I'm really going to bed," I said, my voice a little too bright. I walked over to Ethan and bent down to kiss him. His lips were cool, unresponsive. He smelled of wine and something else. Something like guilt. I pulled away and ruffled his hair. "You two stay up if you want. Don't let me be a party pooper." My words sounded insane to my own ears. "Don't leave them alone," a voice screamed inside my head. But what could I do? Make a scene? Accuse them of what? A look? A touch? I would sound crazy. I said goodnight to Chloe, giving her a quick, stiff hug. Her skin felt hot. I walked down the hall to our bedroom, each step feeling heavier than the last. The closed door felt like a shield, but it was a fragile one. I quickly changed, the silence of the room amplifying the frantic beating of my own heart. I slipped into our bed, into the familiar cool sheets on my side, and I waited. I listened. At first, I could hear the low murmur of their voices from the living room. I couldn't make out the words. Then the music stopped. Silence. The house was completely still. I lay there, every nerve ending on high alert. I was listening for his footsteps, for the sound of him walking down the hall to join me, to hold me, to prove that the cold fear coiling in my gut was all in my head. Minutes passed. Nothing. Just the sound of the rain and my own breathing. Where was he? Why wasn't he coming to bed? I pictured them in there, sitting in the dark, and a wave of nausea washed over me. Then I heard it. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. My whole body tensed. Relief washed over me. He was coming. It was all okay. I was just being a jealous idiot. But the footsteps were slow, hesitant, and they didn't come toward our door. They stopped. There was a pause, a breath of silence that seemed to last an eternity. Then a soft, final sound. A click. The sound of the guest room door, the one where my best friend was staying, quietly closing for the night. I lay there, in the absolute darkness of my bedroom, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. I told myself there were a million reasons. Maybe she needed an extra blanket. Maybe he was just saying a final goodnight. I told myself these things over and over, but the fortress had been breached. The foundation was gone. And I was alone on the other side of the wall, listening to a silence that was louder than any storm. I did not move. I lay perfectly still, a statue carved from ice, and listened to the silence that followed that soft click. My mind raced, trying to build a bridge of logic over the chasm of fear that had just opened beneath me. He's getting her a glass of water. Her lock is stuck. He's telling her where the extra towels are. I built 100 innocent scenarios, each one more fragile than the last. But my body knew the truth. The empty space beside me in our bed was a cold, gaping wound. It knew he wasn't coming back. Time stopped making sense. It could have been 10 minutes or an hour. I just lay there, my ears straining, trying to decipher the language of a house I thought I knew. I heard the rain on the roof, the hum of the fridge. Normal sounds, safe sounds, but they were a lie. Then I heard something else. A low, rhythmic creak. The sound of the guest room bed. I squeezed my eyes shut as if darkness could make me deaf, but I couldn't unhear it. The sound was slow, steady. It painted a picture in my mind, a scene so vivid, it felt like I was in the room with them. I saw her, the way she moved when we were dancing, all fluid grace and unrestrained energy. I saw the look in her eyes, the one that had been meant for him all night, a look of raw, unapologetic hunger. I saw my husband, my Ethan, the man who held my hand when I was scared, the man who knew every secret part of me. I saw his hands, the same strong, gentle hands that had built our garden trellis, now learning the lines of her body. I imagined his mouth, the mouth that kissed me good morning every day, now finding hers in the dark. The creaking stopped. For a moment, there was silence again, and a wild, desperate hope surged in me. It was nothing. I imagined it. And then I heard her laugh. It wasn't loud. It was a low, muffled sound, a dark, velvety ripple that cut through the wall and stabbed me right in the heart. It was a sound of pure, satisfied pleasure. And in that sound, all my bridges of logic, all my innocent scenarios turned to dust and blew away. He was with her. He chose her. I turned onto my side, pulling my knees to my chest, making myself as small as possible. A single hot tear escaped and slid down my temple into my hair. I didn't make a sound. I just lay there and let the pain wash over me. A cold, endless tide. I thought of our wedding day, of the promises he'd made. I thought of the future we had planned, the children we wanted to raise in this house. All of it felt like a dream I was waking up from. The worst part of a secret isn't the lie itself. It's being the only one who has to live in the silence of the truth. It's a loneliness so profound, it can hollow you out from the inside. They say ignorance is bliss, but is it? Or is it better to know, to feel the cut, so you can finally start to bleed? I don't know the answer. If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal, let me know in the comments if you'd rather know the truth or live in the comfort of a lie. And hit that subscribe button, because this story is far from over. Hours passed. The rain softened to a drizzle. The blackness outside our window began to fade to a bruised pre-dawn purple. I felt nothing. I was an empty vessel. hollowed out by grief. I lay there, listening to the silence from the other room, a silence that now felt heavy with completion. Just as the first birds began to sing, I heard it, the soft click of the guest room door opening. My body went rigid. I didn't breathe. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing even, pretending to be deep in sleep. I heard his soft, cat-like footsteps in the hall. He wasn't coming to our room. He was going to the bathroom. I heard the water run, the toilet flush. Then the footsteps returned, slower this time. They came to our door, paused, and then entered. The mattress dipped as he slid into bed behind me. He didn't touch me. He just lay there. His back to my back, a stranger in my bed. But I could smell it. Faint, but undeniable. The scent of her perfume. That dark, spicy scent of sandalwood and amber, clinging to his skin. He thought I was asleep. I let him believe it. I lay there for what felt like an eternity. The heat from his body, a sickening presence just inches from mine. He smelled of her, of our wine, and of deceit. My own skin felt cold, foreign. Finally, feigning the slow, deep breaths of someone waking up, I turned over. His eyes were closed, but his jaw was tight. He wasn't sleeping. He was performing, just like I was. We were two actors in a terrible play, and the stage was our marriage bed. I slid out of bed without a word and went to the kitchen. I moved with a strange robotic calm, my mind a quiet, desolate landscape. I started the coffee, the familiar morning ritual feeling like a scene from someone else's life. I was a ghost in my own home. A few minutes later, he appeared in the doorway, wearing a t-shirt and a haunted expression. He couldn't look me in the eye. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice hoarse. He went to the cabinet for a mug. I poured him a coffee and placed it on the table. My hand was perfectly steady. I asked him, "Did you sleep well?" The words came out sounding light, normal, but they were a test. A stone I was dropping into a well to see how deep the darkness went. He flinched. "Fine," he said, taking a large gulp of coffee. I watched him, really watched him. I saw the new lines of strain around his eyes, the way he kept rubbing the back of his neck. This was not the man I knew. This was a man carrying a secret so heavy, it was changing the very shape of his body. Then, she appeared. Chloe walked into the kitchen looking fresh and rested, her hair tied up in a messy bun. The sight of it on her made a hot, white rage flare up inside me. She smiled, a bright, easy smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Morning, you two," she said cheerfully. "God, I slept like a log. Your guest bed is amazing, Liv." She walked past Ethan to get to the coffee pot. As she did, she pressed a single finger to her lips in a tiny, almost invisible gesture aimed at him, a silent command. Relax. I saw it all. I felt like I was watching the world through a sheet of glass. They were right there, but they were a million miles away, in a world they had built together last night. I sat at the table, sipping my coffee, and played my part. I was the gracious hostess, the trusting wife, the fool. The weeks that followed were a quiet, suffocating hell. On the surface, everything was normal. But underneath, I was a detective in the ruins of my own life. I started to notice things I'd been blind to before. I noticed how Ethan's phone was now always face down on the counter, I noticed how he started having to work late, too, sometimes 3 nights a week. He would come home smelling faintly of the outdoors or of a perfume that wasn't mine. He thought he was being careful. He was clumsy. He became jumpy, his laughter forced. The easy intimacy we once shared was gone, replaced by a careful, polite distance. When he touched me, his hands felt like a stranger's. We were living in the same house, but we were no longer living the same life. He was living a lie, and I was living with his ghost. The love I had for him was slowly being poisoned by suspicion and a deep, aching loneliness. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. We were deciding where to go for dinner. I picked up his phone from the coffee table to look up a restaurant. "Let me see that," he said, his voice sharp with a panic he couldn't hide. He lunged for the phone, snatching it from my hand so fast it almost fell. But I was faster. My eyes had already seen it. A message on the lock screen. A name. Chloe. And 3 words that burned themselves into my memory. Thinking about last night. I froze, pretending I hadn't seen anything. I looked up at him, my face a blank mask. He was breathing heavily, his eyes wide with fear, clutching the phone to his chest like a lifeline. He tried to laugh it off, making a clumsy joke about a work email. But it was too late. The last fragile piece of my denial shattered. I stood there, looking at my husband, the man who held my heart, and I saw the truth. It was no longer a ghost. It was a solid, undeniable thing standing right there in the room with us. And I knew with a certainty that was as cold and sharp as a shard of glass that our life as we knew it was over. He was still talking, rambling about a demanding client and a project deadline, his words a clumsy smokescreen. I wasn't listening. I was just watching his mouth move, marveling at how easily the lies came out. I held his gaze, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't look away. I let him see the cold, clear knowledge in my eyes. His voice trailed off. The fake smile dissolved from his face. The silence that fell between us was absolute. It was the sound of the end. "Don't," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was as sharp as a razor. "Just don't lie to me anymore, Ethan." The color drained from his face. He sank onto the sofa, the phone still clutched in his hand. He looked small, broken. The confident man I married was gone, replaced by this hollowed-out stranger. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no more words. The lies had run out. "Her," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "It's been her this whole time." He couldn't look at me. He just stared at the floor and gave a single wretched nod. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. I had played out my reaction in my head, a script of screaming and crying and throwing things. But now that it was here, I felt nothing. Just a profound, empty stillness. The pain was so vast, it was beyond tears. It was a landscape of ash. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden we had planted together. Our rose bushes were just starting to bud. We had designed it to be a place of peace. Now it just looked like a collection of beautiful things that couldn't feel. "Why?" I asked the glass, my voice barely a whisper. "Just tell me why."
I heard him get up and come to stand behind me. I didn't turn around. I could feel his shame, his regret, radiating off him like heat. There's no excuse, Liv, he said, his voice thick. Nothing I can say will make it right. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. A mistake is spilling coffee, I said, finally turning to face him. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You chose, over and over again, to lie to me. You chose her, in our home, while I was sleeping in our bed. The words hung in the air, each one a separate, heavy weight. He flinched, the truth of it hitting him. I know, he said, his voice breaking. God, I know, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't erase it. I looked at this man, the stranger who wore my husband's face. I saw the desperation in his eyes, the genuine remorse. And underneath all the pain and betrayal, I saw something else. I saw fear. He was terrified of losing me. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could leave. I could pack my bags, walk out that door, and leave the ashes of our life behind. Part of me, the wounded, angry part, screamed for me to do it. But then I thought of the last 10 years. I thought of the home we built, the laughter we shared, the quiet, everyday moments of love that had been the foundation of my world. Was all of that a lie? Or was this betrayal just a terrible, destructive storm that had passed through? You have to tell me everything, I said, my voice hardening. Every lie, every meeting. I want the truth. All of it. No more secrets. And so he told me. He confessed it all. From that first rainy night to the text message I had just seen. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame her. He took it all on himself, laying his failure bare before me. It was the ugliest, most painful conversation of my life. But it was also the first honest one we'd had in months. When he was done, he was weeping, his shoulders shaking. I just stood there, my arms crossed, feeling the full, crushing weight of it all. I looked at him, my husband, the man who had shattered my world. I hated him in that moment. I hated him with a depth I didn't know I was capable of. But as he looked up at me, his face streaked with tears, his eyes begging for something he didn't deserve, I also saw the man I had loved for a decade. And damn it, a part of me, a stubborn, foolish part, still did. She can never be in our lives again, I said, my voice flat and final. You will delete her number. You will block her. She is a ghost to us now. Do you understand? He nodded, a desperate, jerky motion. Anything, Liv, anything. This isn't forgiveness, I warned him. My own tears finally starting to fall. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. This is a chance. One chance. You will spend every single day from now on earning back my trust. And if you ever lie to me again, we are done. That is the only promise you need to keep. We didn't become a fairy tale. Our story doesn't have a perfect, happy ending. Rebuilding a life from wreckage is a slow, painful, ugly process. There are days when the anger and the images come back and I feel like I'm drowning. There are days when I look at him and all I can see is his betrayal. But there are other days when he brings me coffee in the morning and his eyes are clear and honest. Days when he holds my hand while we work in the garden and it feels like it's his. We are learning a new language, one without secrets. It's harder, It's messier. But for the first time in a long time, it feels real. We're two broken people, trying to see if the pieces can be put back together to make something new, something stronger. Or maybe something that will just have to live with the fails.
Betrayal doesn't always end a story. Sometimes it's the beginning of a much harder one. What would you have done? Could you give someone a second chance after a lie that deep? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The conversations we have here are a reminder that no one is alone in their heartbreak. Thank you for walking through this story with me. If it touched you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories that aren't afraid to explore the messy, beautiful, and painful truth of the human heart.